All right, guys, today I'm going to do a bonus video of crazy stuff from my childhood. Every now and then I like to throw in a true story from my childhood. From 15 to 17, I didn't really have a stable place to live. I bounced from friend to friend to friend. My real father was an alcoholic. He drank every night. And then my stepfather also got into alcohol around that same time. So kind of bouncing around from friend to friend, kind of a rough situation. I'm letting you know that because my dad, he's always been kind of wild. He didn't ever really raise me. He always liked to party in the evenings. So he's had a lot of incidents with his vehicles, and that's what the story is about today. So the first story I'm going to mention is basically, we were driving down the road. I lived out in Harwood, North Dakota. He had an old El Camino, and basically he would pick me up and just drive really fast in that thing. He'd go up on boulevards and pick me up if I'm on the sidewalk. He'd just pull right up over the curb, park on the grass. Like, he doesn't care about rules, basically. So we're driving 80 miles an hour down the highway, and literally the entire wheel just flies off the car on the driver's front tire. The rim and the tire, it was still inflated. Somehow the lug nuts fell off of his tire at 80 miles an hour. So he locks onto the wheel, boom, and we're skidding and screeching, because the drum for the brake is sliding on the concrete, basically. My dad was able to maintain going straight until we stopped. We're basically, I think he kind of got over to the side of the road before we stopped. And then we proceeded to walk up and down the road looking for the tire that flew off of his El Camino at 80 miles an hour. I actually spotted the tire. It was literally like a quarter mile out in the field. I spotted a tire, and I didn't say anything right away because it was so far out there, and I was just like 8 years old at the time. I honestly didn't think that could be his tire because it was so far out in the field. Silly me, obviously. So I told them there's the tire. They ran out there and got it. They wheeled it back. I don't know. They must have found some of the lug nuts because I remember they did get the tire on and we were able to drive it home that day. So it was a really crazy situation where we almost died in this car. It was just me and my dad's worker and him. So very, very intense situation. So for a little while when I was pretty young, my dad had this big van with no windows, like an old work van. And he, again, is a wild guy. So he was eating at Hardee's, and he said he bit into something hard at Hardee's. So when he's walking out to his car, he happened to notice that there's snow covering his license plate. So as he backed up, he backed into the plate glass doors of Hardee's and drove away. And as he's driving away, one of the workers comes out chasing him, and my dad's just laughing because his plate is covered in snow, so he knows that he won't be able to be identified. So he did that, and then soon after, I would assume this is karma, he's driving down the road and reaching for something on his passenger side as he's trying to drive, not looking. His van swerved over at like 40 miles an hour and smashed into a light pole. He got pretty banged up and hurt his back and everything, but all in all, he ended up being okay. So when I was a kid, my dad had multiple DUIs, so he was always driving without a license and, in a way, running from the police. Before I was in the picture, he told me he ran from the police 29 times, for example, in Fargo, North Dakota in the 60s and 70s. So basically, I was with him, just me and him in this Oldsmobile 88, and it was kind of a traffic jam, and apparently I didn't know it at the time. I don't think he had a license, or maybe he had invalid registration. He had something obviously illegal on his car. Because there was a cop 2 cars behind us, so there's my dad and 2 cars and a cop car, and we're all in a traffic jam. Well, as soon as my dad got the opportunity to turn on the street, he turned and floored it, and he had a friend that lived a couple blocks down, and he pulled into his driveway, got out of his driver's side and ran into a grill as he's running in and hiding behind the garage, and he told me to get down, and I'm scared. I don't know what's going on, so I just get down on the passenger floor, and then, so we basically were avoiding the cops. I don't think we were in an active chase, but he ran to avoid the cops to a friend's house, and this was just kind of some regular daily activities with him. I mean, for example, we were leaving one of his friend's house in Moorhead, Minnesota one night. I believe he was drinking and partying until about 1 a.m., for example. We were driving home and he got pulled over by the police. So it was me and my dad and his golden retriever and his chihuahua, and I'm about 8 or 9 years old. He gets arrested for a DUI, and the police literally brought me back to his friend's house that was just some disabled guy. Literally, they just went and dropped me off at some random person's house. They didn't talk to the people at the house. They didn't talk to my mom, who's my legal guardian. They just dropped me off at somebody's house. So thankfully, nothing happened to me. I had to watch the dogs that night. My dad went to jail, and then he came and bailed me out the next morning, So just another episode. It was always an adventure hanging out with my dad. Like one time, for example, he was telling me how great of a driver he is, and it was winter, and he had an old Ford truck, and we were going down an underpass, and he's saying how great of a driver he was, and he was kind of swerving around, and he lost control and smashed into the side of the underpass. And basically, the snowplows leave a big snowdrift along the side of the underpass, so the front of his old Ford truck that's only two-wheel drive got stuck in the snowbank. So he's stuck there on the underpass in a main street in Moorhead by the high school. He's sitting there flooring it, trying to back up, finally backs up and goes, and when we get to the top, there's a cop driving by on the cross street, so it's just another close call. And I think he was drinking that night. I'm not 100% sure. One night for sure he was drinking. He was driving me home. Same thing, he was singing songs and swerving all over the road on a gravel road with this, it was an Oldsmobile Frienza. It was an 80s car, I believe, early 90s. It was a hatchback, little ugly Oldsmobile. Swerving around, hey, yeah, wahoo, drunk, loses control, drives in the ditch about a mile from my mom and stepdad's home out by Amenia, North Dakota. He was too embarrassed to go and ask for help, so apparently, we just waited, and like an hour later, somebody drove by and they pulled us out, and then basically he was able to finish and drop me off, or finish the drive and drop me off at home. So just like a constant thing of him drinking and ending up in the ditch. But I guess that's North Dakota behavior if you ever look into it. So because of all these issues I had with him as a kid, as I mentioned in the beginning, we moved on to adult life, and he still had his issues. When I'm about 19 or 20, we would get in arguments, and I quit talking to him. So around 21 years old, my uncle, I hadn't talked to my dad in a year. My uncle calls me up, your dad's been in a terrible car accident. Holy crap, oh my God, I felt terrible. I hadn't talked to my dad in a year. I rush over to the hospital, just really upset with myself. Excuse me. As soon as I get there, my dad, he's got a huge gash across his forehead. I don't even know what happened at this point. I get in there, and the first thing he says is, did you see that nurse? She's fucking hot. There's some nurse that had walked out and went behind a curtain a couple feet away from him, a cloth curtain. So she can hear him just like you can hear me. Loud and clear. I'm sure he's on pain medication. I don't know. But I'm just like, yeah, I saw her. She's right here. She can hear you. And long story short, he was driving a pickup truck down Main Avenue in Fargo, North Dakota, going 65 miles an hour in about, I think it's a 40 mile per hour speed limit. As he's going 65 miles per hour, as the police estimated after the investigation, he told me he leaned over. Remember, I told you in the van, he had done this before in his van, the Hardee's van, and he was grabbing something off the floor. And when he looked up again, there was a semi-truck pulling another semi-truck. So if you can imagine, if you ever see a semi pulling another semi-truck, there's no semi-trailer involved, but there's two large semi-trucks connected, one's pulling the other. My dad literally looked up and was going to go broadside on a semi-truck pulling a semi-truck, and he smashed into the gas tank of the second semi-truck, and he got thrown on the floor so hard he was literally like up under the dash. So he literally got just demolished, and his Chevy truck was literally, the frame was bent down, touching the ground. And terrible car accident, lots of tickets, lots of trouble for him at the time. But thank God he was okay. As I mentioned, I walked into the hospital and he's happy and talking about nurses. Now he has had a few strokes since then, and you know, about 10, 15 years later, we found these strokes. He's had 3 of them. So maybe it had something to do with the car accident. I guess we're not sure. But to add to the story, you know, now fast forward to him being about 65 years old. And, you know, I have my own kids now, and they're real little. And I get a call from the police out in Hillsboro, North Dakota. This is a town about an hour away from where he lives. So, and it's about an hour and a half or more away from me at the time. So I get a call from these police officers telling me that my dad has been arrested for driving without a license. I'm like, oh my God, this stuff never ends. So I tell the kids, we got to go pick up Grandpa. Well, where is he? He's in jail. So me and my little 5-year-old kids went to go bail Grandpa out of jail. And they come walking into the jail, you know, and it just gives me flashbacks of me when I was a 5-year-old kid having to deal with the same thing. So, you know, I guess I see why this stuff may continue once in a while through the generations, but hopefully it ends with him, you know. So got to take my kids into the jail to bail out Grandpa. Just another day in the life of being Jeff's son. So thanks again, guys. I will come up with another bonus video. I got a lot more crazy stories. So thank you. Please like and subscribe, and I'll keep them coming. Have a good one.